The moment of truth. Hey guys, I'm shooting this late. Well, the video's way early. I'm shooting this late. We took this footage before we even did shop upgrades and things. So but I wanted to share it with you because the Nailhead Buick's a really cool engine, and we did do quite a bit to it. But I think at the end, it's just going to kind of all come together, and I apologize for that. We knew we were running out of time. We had to get shop upgrades and other stuff going. So, but here it is anyway, all the oil leaks and other mechanical stuff we did on the engine side, other than the electricals that you've already watched, hopefully up here in those other Buick videos. And then the next one you're going to see is the Dynaflow transmission get some love because it is leaking like crazy. Anyway, thanks for watching our stuff. Appreciate you very much. Enjoy the video. Welcome back to the channel. We are back on the 58 Buick Special. Today is engine oil leak day. So we've got a couple things going on, and I thought I was ready and I forgot my light. A couple things we're going after today, oil leak wise, is the oil pan appears to be, it's a little wet down there, and sometimes you can tighten those up just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and pull the pan and put a new gasket in and a little bit of silicone, that kind of stuff, to make sure we do it the right way. And then the second leak we have is up here. Look right down there. Oil pools on top of the timing cover. If you just let the car sit here and idle, even if it's at full temp, you don't get any oil. But you have to drive it, and as you drive it, the oil moves around in here a little bit, and it seeps a little bit, and then because you're going down the road, the fan's whirly-wooing, and it blows it back into, you can kind of see the front of the intake. The valley pan cover is all kind of covered with a coating of oil schmoo, and that's what's happening. So we're first going to dump the oil. We got her a little bit warmed up so we can get good oil out of it. We're going to dump the oil and service it at the same time, and then we're going to come up and we're going to start disassembling. We got to take the fan shroud off the fan, water pump, and then get into the timing cover. Fuel pump's got to come off, you know, upper hoses, all the hoses, and that kind of gadgetry. So we're going to start tearing this apart, and we'll let you know what we find. Mackie's hanging out today. What do you know, buddy? What do you know? Who's the best dog? Who's the best boy? Yeah, he's the best boy. That's who. Yeah. Gonna hang out in the shop for a little bit. You excited? You having a good day? Ooh, wet paws. You've been adventuring. We got updates. Pan is off. Let's get under here and I'll show you, how this happens. We're draining coolant now so we can take the front cover off, timing cover, but in order to get the pan off of this 1958 Buick Special, yeah, pan bolts, obviously. There's a couple tucked underneath here that you got to get a wobbly woo on. But then you have to take the Y pipe loose at both manifolds and the collector, and then also that won't quite get you the pan snuck out. Then also we unbolted the idler arm bracket from
the passenger side frame rail and then pulled this whole center section of the steering linkage down, and then that got our pan out nice and smooth out the back. Oh, and you have to take the torque converter cover off. Now, underneath here, the back half of the pan, not leaking at all. It was leaking, at least showed signs of leaking on the front part towards, about the first quarter or so. Was not stuck on very well. Prying off the back, it was sealed pretty good through 3/4 of it, but along the front, especially on the passenger side, and we'll show you that, it was probably leaking. Rear main seal looks okay. However, when we pulled the dust cover off for the torque converter, that's mostly transmission fluid, not engine oil. It's a mix. It's a cocktail. But yeah, that transmission, I think we do have all our parts, or we're maybe waiting on one today, but that's going to be our next big job, is pulling that transmission off the back of this engine and taking it apart and sealing it up. That'll be another video though. But right now we're dropping coolant so we can move on with engine oil leaks. Let's go look at the pan. All right, over here on the bench we got our pan, and here is the section of gasket I'm talking about. See where it changes color, where it's dry, and this has been off, so, but you can tell it was sealing pretty good. Maybe a little bit of seepage here. Up here, this is probably just from it sitting like this on the bench, but then we got a little wetness here, and then right here on this side, that's the passenger side, you know, the first half, looks like maybe we got a little light on the silicone compared to the rest of it, but that's where we were probably losing just a little bit. We were doing a little bit here. Now, in the bottom of the pan, we've got some sparklies. Now this engine was just done, so it had some break-in, I'm sure, and the drain plug is not completely at the bottom of the sump, so some of that after the break-in may not have drained out real well. But let's get a magnet and let's see. You know, there should be some bearing material and ring material. Let's see how much of this stuff, if any, is magnetic. There's some. That's not horrible though. That, get it out from behind there. That's not too bad. That's normal for a new engine for break-in. Now there was also a little bit of moisture in this pan, but I'm talking just a little bit, and you might think that's a big deal, but remember we're talking about a 1958 here. It's not nearly as efficient as newer cars are at ventilating the crankcase. And again, like I said, the drain plug is probably almost a half an inch, well, maybe not a half inch, a quarter inch up from the bottom of the sump. So some of that stuff just doesn't have an opportunity to drain out really well. We're gonna get this all cleaned up. We're draining coolant, we're gonna get the timing cover off, and then we'll start putting things back together. Out now to where we can get this damper pulled off. There we go. Right there, missing a little chunk. Kind of weird.
you.
dowel pin there. I'm assuming we're going to have a little bit of silicone going on.
Well, guys and gals, sorry about that. You missed the moment of truth. I've been prying on this thing. You got to be really kind of careful because you've got a fuel pump casting on this edge, and it's really tempting to get between the fuel pump casting and the block and pry. But I'm telling you, if you crack this guy or break this timing cover, good luck finding another one in a reasonable amount of time. I mean, you'll find one, but it ain't gonna be easy. But anyway, there's a little knuckle over here, right here, and I ended up taking my big snap-on pry bar. This is my shorter one, and getting here and against the head. And after a couple, pry, let it rest, it finally let go. So now we should be able to just kind of work it loose. There's a dowel. There we go. Perfect. Oh! Okay, we're into the evening hours, but it's update time, and we're gonna have to go next day alert because we hit a little bit of a snag. So everything's apart. Everything is cleaned up. Gasket surfaces are all cleaned up, ready to go. Snag number one is you can't get just a water pump gasket. I can't find a listing for it locally without waiting 3 or 4 days. So we made one, no big deal. And then snag number two was on the back side of the timing cover here. I don't know where I put, there it is. And here, now in the gasket kit, they send you, let's go find it here. They send you a rope seal. This is a rope seal right here. And that's how it would have been born, with that from the factory. And well, somewhere along the line, I got on the interwebs and a couple Buick boards and stuff. This one had a seal, a lip seal in here. And we figured out the number. I think we can get one in the morning, but it did not come in that kit, so we got to go buy one. Not a huge deal. I think the Napa in the neighboring town has it, and we can continue with assembly there. Now, the way this whole thing sits on the front of the engine is just like this. Here's your crank hole. Here's your water pump, and then it goes into the block. There's passages for the block here and here, kind of like a small block water pump, a Chevy. But then this guy also sits on top of here, and there's a hole, and there's a giant fat O-ring that goes in there, and that's all good. It actually sits like that, goes like that. And then this is where your thermostat resides, up in here, and this is where the hose, upper radiator hose, connects. Pretty standard stuff. Now, when we took this apart, we noticed that there was this stuff on here. It's not JB Weld. It's not the paint coming off. It's some sort of a sealer. I don't know that it's even silicone, but it was loose and coming off anyway, so we peeled it off, and this is what we found. So this is the game stopper, or the lightning strike. The game can't go on tonight, is what I'm saying. We've contacted the customer. The customer says that's no good. We're gonna get a new one. It'll take 3 or 4 days probably. So we're gonna get everything else put back together. We should be able to get everything else back together tomorrow, and then we'll roll it out of here without any coolant in it and wait a couple more days for a new thermostat housing neck. About a $50 part is what I'm guessing. I've seen them on eBay, just real preliminary looking. I don't think it's going to be much cheaper than that to get it shipped here, but
This engine was just freshened up and gone through and rebuilt professionally. And, you know, when you're talking that kind of money for a full rebuild, I think this probably, you know, could have been done sooner. But either way, we're going to fix it right and life will be good. All the gasket surfaces, like I said, are ready. Let's go take a real quick peek under the car. Trust me, the bottom of the block is good too. But let's look here. Everything's all cleaned up, ready to go. Here's where that long tube goes. And I think we can slide it down after we get the timing chain cover and water pump on. And then the last part to go back on will be the oil pan down there. But we're all cleaned up, all ready to go. We did some of the screws. It looks like there was gas seeping out of the carburetor just a little bit. Some of those screws have backed off just a little bit, or the gaskets have started to shrink over time. So we gave them just a little bit of a tightening there. And yeah, we'll go from there. So we're gonna throw this back together tomorrow. We should be able to get everything back in, new oil in the engine. We'll even have a thermostat, but we won't have the neck. So that's it for tonight. The skeeters are eating me alive. I'm gonna go in the house and chill out for a little bit. See you in the morning. We got updates. It's been a couple days actually, so no next day alert, but alert for updates anyway. And sometimes, I'm sorry guys and gals, I just got to get in here and work. We are back together on the front of this Nailhead 364, pardon me. So what did we do? We did inner timing cover gasket, water pump gasket, front seal. Somebody had already updated to a lip seal, so we had to order one of them. That was one of the delays, and I think we mentioned that. Fuel pump gasket, and then we found that problem with the water neck up here. So we're all back together except for we're waiting on the new water neck. We do have a new thermostat in there. All the belts, hoses, fan, everything's back on, torqued, tightened, living a good life. One thing we have left to do is the Earl pan. It's over here on the bench. We're going to slather the pan side of that gasket in ultra gray, and then we'll, you know, also slather the block side of the gasket in ultra gray. Once that's done, and we get the thermostat neck back on, we'll give you another update. But yeah, cleaned up good. All the gunk and stuff that was in there is gone, and we will get it reinstalled. Well, it has been more than a day or two. It's been over 2 months, and I apologize, but we started hitting our peak on this Buick just about the time I panicked about getting the shop insulated and heated for the winter. So this old boy got put on hold, to say the least. And you didn't get the final road test, you didn't get the assembly. Everything's back together. Everything looks really good, except for, if you look real close, there's green liquid right down there. In fact, we're even post-transmission video. So when we end this, we're gonna do the road test of both, I guess. Anywho, all the oil leaks are looking good, but we've got a persistent coolant leak. And I'll show you when I get this off, but there's 2 gaskets here on this upper crossover. It goes into each cylinder head with gaskets, no big deal. But then there's a big fatty oversized O-ring and a tube that goes down into the top of the timing cover. And it didn't leak when it came in here, but we did go ahead and replace the gaskets and that O-ring. And by the way, we've got our new thermostat housing. It's beautiful, but we've got this O-ring. So we originally bought Phil-Pro gaskets for this, and more often than not, a guy or gal can trust Phil-Pro to have the right stuff.
But even when it was cold, as soon as I started pouring the coolant into the engine and the radiator, it would start dribbling out from that O-ring. So we thought, well, let's pull it back apart. We didn't use any kind of sealant. We just used a little bit of light grease. There wasn't any sealant on the old O-ring, but we tried it twice. It leaked out cold twice. So then we thought, well, maybe there's a little difference in O-rings. The O-ring that it had when it came in here didn't leak. So we took everything off. We made gaskets this time because we used sealant on them, and put everything back together. The original O-ring that this car came in with is doing the same thing. So I'm a little perplexified, and if you know, tippy tap down in the comments if you've got an idea. But what we did, and we've had really good luck in a couple of our other, well, actually the thermostat neck and a couple other issues with this car, we contacted the ladies and dudes at Best Offer Counts. They specialize in the old Buicks, and they gave us their kit. So we've got a new, we don't need the thermostat gasket, but we've got new crossover gaskets, and we've got yet another O-ring. We're going to take this down one more time. We're going to measure these O-rings, and hopefully with a different source of gaskets, but mainly this O-ring, we can, seal this up. Because right now, that's the only thing keeping us from getting this down the highway and getting on to the next phase in this project. So we're going to pull this apart, and I'll show you up close what our O-ring issue is, and we'll kind of go from there. Just about do this blindfolded. I've had this apart enough times. It literally is as simple as that, but I can't get it to stop leaking. All right, we'll see you over on the bench. I'll show you on this last attempt. I did put a little bit of ultra gray down in here with this O-ring, but it did not help things. I believe this is the stock O-ring or the original O-ring, and it just don't fit. But now that we've done this, we're going to have to go in here and betterly clean that up before we go back in. But otherwise, this is smooth in here. I've checked it several times. Well, let's go look at the other end, and then we'll clean stuff up, and then we're going to compare this O-ring to our new one from the Specialty Buick Parts guys. So here's the other end of that. It's just there. There's no surprises. We'll take a little bit of wire brush. We got to clean off this gray silicone anyway. We're going to go back to no silicones, no sealants, and try to get just the O-ring to seal. But other than the silicone here, it's as simple as that. It's clean, ready to go surface. We got to clean off the gaskets, get the heads cleaned off where these gaskets go. And then, like I said, we're going to compare O-rings. They look real similar, but there's got to be a way, and we're going to figure it out. So here's one theory on this that I've been kicking around, and some of you have probably already wondered about the same thing. Is here's our flat surface to our heads, and here is our hole to for our O-ring. So we have new gaskets, and we just mentioned that these appear to be quite a bit thicker than the ones we've used so far. So what does that mean? The difference in the thicknesses of the gasket can move this O-ring in here from there to there, or get it right centered where it's supposed to be. And that could be the shimming, so to speak, aspect of this could be part of the problem. Now let's go over and look at the car. We started cleaning up over there, and I think we might have some evidence of that. So we got to very carefully clean all this out of here now, but look at the back of that wall. You're looking right here, this part. There's not a lot of silicone here, and I didn't scrape this very much at all yet, but we don't have a big glob of silicone here. Now if we go around and look at that same hole from the back, look here, right down in here, we've got, in fact, there's enough silicone there that I don't think the O-ring was actually up against the housing on that side. So maybe with those thicker gaskets we'll push, because this will push that towards the front of the engine and away from this backside where we had less silicone. So maybe the thicker gaskets will get us there. We're also though going to size out that O-ring and see if maybe it's just a touch bigger. All right, let's test this theory now. We've got our caliper. Here's our new O-ring. Here's our old O-ring. So the naked eye, maybe I'm seeing things, but let's just do this. Here, let's go to the fat part. There we go. About 205 thousandths. And this one won't go in there. Yeah, well, 205,000. So, they really fit about the same. How about overall diameter? Looking like 1.08 maybe. This guy, well, here we go. No. Now there is a difference there. 1.06 versus 1.08 almost. So a little bit bigger outside diameter. 0 again. Let's check inside diameter. 0.66 on the new one, and a loose 0.69. Okay, so we got a little bit more beef in this one, but again, this one's already been installed, so it looks like maybe there might have been some steam shooting out of there. May have actually scarred that O-ring a little bit, but that's where we're at. We are going to go ahead and use these thicker gaskets. They look like they're a really good quality gasket, so I'm kind of happy about that. And we aren't going to use a bunch of silicone. We're going to use just the gasket sealer, and yeah, throw her back together one more time. Okay, gaskets are on. O-ring is on with just the slightest bit of grease so it doesn't try to rip when we put it in, and we've got Permatex high-tack gasket sealant on both sides of the gaskets. Let's go install. Not too bad, we are all installed. Now I'm being, optimistic here, but as we were pushing down on this, it felt like there was just the right amount of resistance. Like the O-ring was happy, everything was happy, our gasket slid down in. where they were supposed to go. We didn't over torque them, so we're not trying to squish that shimming, process. And yeah, it's a little late. It's not nearly as late as we're out here a lot of times, but it's about 8 o'clock. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this sucker sit all the way over the night times, and we'll come out and throw some coolant in it first thing in the morning, and we'll see if we got her. Next day alert. We are gonna fill. Look, watch. I'll fill. You guys watch right down here. Tell me if you see, a dribble come out of there. It's a moment of truth. I suppose I should go get the drain pan just in case, huh? I mean, because this is like the 4th or 5th try at this. So far, so good. Guys and dudes and dudettes. Alright, we are running. No cap on the radiator yet, but no leakies. Just kind of letting her get up to a little bit of temp. We went ahead and checked forward, reverse. Everything's going the way it should. So yeah, we're going to let idle just a few minutes here, make sure it gets up to temperature okay, and then we'll take her for a little cruise. We're going to go into town and we'll wash the dust and a little bit of bird poop and bug poop and other stuff off of there so that we can get on to shining this bad right up. Well, just like that, we are back from our road test. Sparky ran great, transmission was flawless, our pesky coolant leak stayed away. The speedometer is a little gummy again, so we might have to do a little tweaking on our speedometer repair. If you haven't looked at that video, go back and watch it. The only downside to the test drive, and I already sopped it up, we had where we were looking for coolant down in here, down in there and right here, coolant's gone, but we still have a little bit of a pesky oil leak. And on these nail heads, they don't oil the rockers through the push rods like a small block Chevy. What they do is they push oil through a passageway in the head. There's one at the front of the head and one towards the back of the head, and they oil up and get oil to the rockers that way. So it's pretty unlikely that that's where the leak is coming from. And we did have some wetness around the timing cover anyway, so we did the more affordable thing, quite honestly. And let's eliminate the leaks that are cheap to eliminate. But now we're at an issue here where it does not appear to be the valley pan gasket. It's certainly not the valve cover gasket. So I'm kind of thinking that head gasket may be weeping some oil. Now this engine was just recently rebuilt. Means it was disassembled, everything, all in new internals, everything else. There's a possibility that we can take this valve cover off and we can re-torque this head and maybe get that leak to go away. I got to talk to the customer. Otherwise, it's going to be major surgery. You're talking an intake off and the head off and yeah. But I got to talk to the customer and see if they want to try that. It's a cheap attempt. The odds are probably fairly low that it'll be successful. But, for a pair of valve cover gaskets and an hour or two of time, it's probably worth it. If it was my car, that's what I would do. So anyway, but the rest of it, we're freaking awesome. So we got it all cleaned up. We're gonna roll it out of here now, sweep up our mess from our transmission job, and then tomorrow we are gonna start paint correction. I can't wait. It's gonna be pretty awesome. Appreciate each and every one of you for hanging in with us and being patient with us while we set this Buick aside and did the shop. But we are back. We're back on hot rods and classic cars. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video.